Exodus 17. The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin, traveling from place to place, as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test?" But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt, to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They're almost ready to stone me." The Lord answered Moses, "Go out in front of the people. Take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand this staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink." So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he called the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled, and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" The Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands." So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning, but whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands remained steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven." Moses built an altar and called it "The Lord is my banner." He said, "Because hands were lifted up against the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation."
Okay, we're going to stop there. Okay, so here is all about the water. Okay, this chapter is divided into two major sections. We've got the water crisis, and then we've got the fight with the Amalekites. So that's why I stopped here. So we're just going to talk about the water. Okay, and now I wanted to show you in my very elongated map, my map that is, I stretched it to make the world bigger, to show you where we are. So we've been traveling this way along this line, and we're down, as close as I can figure, we're down about here. Okay? And this is where Rephidim. This is where Rephidim. This is our campground for the night. Okay? And so we've had how many days out to this point? Almost 30 days. So let's add, say, another 10 days or another 2 weeks on here into the desert some more, okay? Because they moved the camp and they're down here. I said that there's the Negev desert is up in here. That's another place we're going to talk about. And then Kadesh. Remember Kadesh, where Joshua got his name changed? It's up in here, in this area. Okay. So they're heading down this way, and here's Mount Sinai or Horeb down here. So that's one Horeb, and then there's another Horeb here. These are both horrible places. Okay. So this is here. I'll explain why I think that there's the Horeb here and the Horeb here, but it's just a play on words. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of where we are in the story. Okay. How many of you have ever been on a journey where you were so thirsty you thought you were going to die? You ever been like that? Had an experience where you're so thirsty you're going to die? Because we kind of want to relate ourselves to put ourselves in the same sandals as the Israelites here. So let's hear what yours.
Actually, I climbed the CN Tower last year.
Oh, yeah.
You're not allowed to bring bottled water, so I thought I was fit, but after maybe 30, 40 floors, I felt like I was gonna die.
Yeah.
Because first of all you're tired and it's stuffy in there, and there's no
Is it? Yeah.
and there's no water. So
Yeah. And your mouth starts.
yeah, and it's some foam coming on the side, and then some people actually puked in some floors, and you had to smell it. So I was like, huh? Well, I don't have to bring water because they're afraid maybe someone like might throw it in the stairs, and maybe people might slip on it.
Like a missile going down there, wouldn't it? Yeah. I used to live in Africa, and we lived in a place called Namibia. It's all desert. And we went on a bicycle trip. It was a 4-day bicycle trip on our mountain bikes. And we set out from the center called Windhoek, and we were going to the coast. And you go through 3 mountain ranges and a huge desert. Sand dunes that are 200-300 feet high, and they're huge, huge desert. It's actually a geographical phenomenon how this happened. We were going through there, and it was 40 degrees Celsius, through gravel and sand and everything. There wasn't a blade of grass out there. It's all rocks. And there was about 30 of us on this trip. It was a fundraiser for the church. We're raising money for some musical equipment, for crying out loud, for the church. And we got sponsors, and we got across the desert. And we got out there, and in a day and a half, I thought I was going to perish, because there was no protection. You were so thirsty, but fortunately, we had support vehicles that came with drinks. They brought Gatorade and all the waters and juices that we need, and we had our little bottles and stuff that we could fill. But when we sat down, you were so thirsty. Your body had sweated out everything, that you're just weak. And you could not, once you sat down, you could not get back up if you wanted to. You were so tired. I'd never been so tired in my life. Anyway, that went on for 3 days. And we made it. But I thought, if I ever got stuck out here without support vehicles, you would perish in about a day. It was so hot. It just felt like there was a furnace, like a great big furnace, and it was just blasting on you the whole time.
Maybe like a sauna?
It was worse. A sauna's moist, but
no, the dry one.
Oh, the dry sauna, the electric one, yeah. So anyway, I'm trying to relate that, how thirsty I would have been if I had been in the sandals of these Israelis tramping through this desert, and that's the same kind of thirst that they're experiencing right now. Okay, so if you can get your mind around that, that's where our story is, and that's where these first 7 verses are sitting right now. These people are seriously thirsty, okay? So let's pick it up from there. What is the response by the people to this crisis? There's that word again, crisis, okay? It's not ISIS, it's crisis. What's the response? You'll see in just any of those 7 verses will give you a hint. Complain. Yeah. Okay.
Grumble.
Grumble. We had a grumble. Yeah. Okay. Quarreled is, see the big word there? Quarreled. Yeah, we went over that word. And they were quarrelsome. Yeah.
They even miss Egypt.
Yeah, they even missed Egypt. Yeah, they wanted to go back. Do you blame them? I mean, when I was out on that bike trip, I wanted to go back. I couldn't blame them. But they're out. Here they are out 40 days, and here we are again, thirsty. Like they already had a drink at Mara. Now they're getting a drink. Now they're running out of water again. So they must have some kind of containers that carry water on their trip. But now they're running out of water, and everybody's getting thirsty. So how much time do you have left on the clock in your life if you don't have water? 3 days at the most, and then you dehydrate. Then your body shuts down. You die.
Cardiac arrest, right?
Yeah, cardiac. Yeah. Food, you can go for a little bit longer. I don't think I could, but maybe I could go 4
Shot
days.
first?
Yeah, I think chat first.
Yeah, but it's not long before you have water. So they have a huge crisis on their hands. You've got 600,000 people that all want a drink of water. Okay, so they quarrel. Think about, put yourself in this position before we go, oh, why didn't they just ask God for it? careful. Careful we don't judge these guys too harshly, okay? All right. Okay, verse 2. It says, it's an interesting word here. Verse 2, it says, so they quarreled. In another version it says, therefore they quarreled. And when I was looking at this, I thought, isn't that interesting that the verse starts with so, or therefore they quarrel. It was like a habit. Okay, you have children of Israel, therefore they will quarrel and complain. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. You have children of Israel and you have a crisis, you get complaints and grumbling and quarreling. It's like an equation that is always there. Okay? Now, I was curious to know what you thought. Do you think that this grumbling and quarreling would have been a pattern set for them when they were back in Egypt in slavery? Like, if you were a slave and you didn't want to do things, would you not complain all the time, right? The work would be too hard, it's too, the guy's beating up on me all the time. I'm kind of empathizing with the children of Israel here. I'm sorry, if I was their lawyer, I'd probably want to defend them. That they were right in this instance, because after 430 odd years of generation after generation of generation of slavery, they had developed a pattern of being being people who complained a lot, and then legitimately too. Like, why? If you get in a job situation and your boss is nasty, you start complaining about your boss, right? And so you start developing these patterns. So I think God knew all this stuff. He knew that this was in their psychological makeup, that they were damaged people. Okay? And so that's something that we need to understand about ourselves too, that we can get in patterns of grumbling and complaining and stuff. And it's something that can be happening from, you know.
Like the weather.
That's right.
Traffic.
It is. It is, yeah.
Listen to the news and complain about whatever's on the news.
Yeah. Yeah, or the weather's not quite right. It's, it's too cold, it's too wet, it's too hot, it's too sunny, it's too cloudy. We start complaining, what do you expect for a country that gets all 4 seasons in 1 week,
The TTC or the traffic on the road, or TTC's late, or
Yeah.
anything.
And this becomes a cultural thing, right? It becomes something that we just learn to do it. You go to Tim Hortons and you complain, you go to Starbucks and you complain too, it just becomes that. So, give these guys some slack. Now they're in the middle of the desert and they're thirsty, and they're complaining. So, okay. Now, let's look at Moses, how he responds. Okay, let's move on. And I want to break this into 2 parts. What was Moses' response to the people? And the second one, what action did he take? Okay? What was Moses' response to the people? I think you can get in verse 2 there, will help you out. What was his response? What about these people? He's crying to God, right? About these people. And he's had to take in all these complaints. He's had to see this. But Moses also got the advantage of being in direct communication with God. And that seemed to be the way God operated back in the day, was he talked directly to people like Moses and Noah and all those. He talked directly to them. And these other people didn't really seem to have that type of communication. They looked to Moses as a leader. And so Moses has this advantage of, I know God's out there. I know he's going to do something. He's going to look after us. And so when he responds to the people, he goes, you guys, don't you get it? Don't you get it? And he cries to God. He says, these people you gave me are bozos. What's going on here? And how intense was their quarreling? Like, what do you read in there that they want to stone him, right? Stoning's not a nasty way to die. It really hurts for a long time, and then you blank out and you're done. So Moses was scared for his life that these people were so bad. And when you're 600,000 people to 1, that's pretty bad odds of you getting out of this alive. But why would they stone him? Then when you think about it, if they got rid of Moses, then what?
And worse,
You're really,
worse situation.
yeah, that's worse, yeah.
So what's the meaning of intense?
Intense?
Yeah.
It means it's a very strong emotion, very concentrated effort. When you say if you're on a bicycle and you can ride a bicycle very, just kind of. But if you become intense at riding this bicycle, you put all your effort into it. Yeah, that idea of.
So can you use intense to describe a situation?
Yeah. Yeah. You can use it to say if there's a lot of friction. A lot of people are angry. Like you've got this whole group of Israelis that are very, very angry, right? And it's getting very, 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 very serious. It's to this crisis situation. That's very intense. Okay, and so it's just energy packed. Yeah. So it's going to blow anytime now. Very intense. Okay. So, from Moses' perspective, what he cannot believe with these people is, look, you guys, we've had this cloud in front of us. We've had this pillar of fire in front of us. We got here because God led us here. Don't you get it? And then another thing that must have been really hard for Moses to take was they're looking at him and saying, you're not a good leader anymore. You just don't, what are you doing, Moses? You've led us out here to die. We would rather be back in Egypt and be slaves. And it's like they didn't see God out there. They completely missed him. And Moses is standing there in unbelief with these people. And then he just cries to God, what am I going to do with these people? Oh, it's pizza. Okay. Chinese food. Okay. So here we come across this word sovereign again. Okay, so this is what the children of Israel, weren't thinking that God was sovereign anymore. They had lost that whole issue. Okay. So do you think Moses was getting a little concerned about his position as the leader of the Israelis at this point? I don't know you won't find it in the scriptures here. I'm just asking a question. Do you think he's getting a little concerned about being the leader of these people? That he might want to quit? Yeah. I think, put yourself in his sandals. I think I would be too. Okay, so we noted that they were going to stone him, and I'm wondering if Moses was also saying under his breath, this has been the longest 40 days of my life. This is going to be the longest 40 years of my life because I got to lead these guys through the desert. Man, oh man, what am I going to do? And you can't blame poor Moses. He's desperate now. He's desperate. Okay, so he cried to the Lord, but it also is kind of a reflection of the people's faith again. They lost their faith. Moses has faith that God will do something. He just doesn't know what he's gonna do. So here's this whole issue of faith coming up again. And even though the Israelis had all these visual signs, the cloud, the fire, he had the fact that the manna was coming, the quail was coming on a regular basis, everything was being provided for. Yeah, you're getting thirsty now, but don't you believe that God can give you a drink again? He did back there, he gave you the food. What's your problem, And we sometimes get ourselves into situations like that too. We think, well, something's not quite right here. I don't have it all. But we don't go back and look at the things that God has for us, right? We forget about it. So this is how we can kind of relate to the Israelites here. And then we start losing our faith goes downhill. And we just think, well, where is he? Where's God? And yet there's signs of him all over the place. Look up at the stars. Oh yeah, that's my Heavenly Father. He made those, Aren't you impressed? Okay. And I think too, you've got we talked about being stubborn here. I think you've got a very stubborn bunch of people. Yeah, stubborn, okay? Remember that. And for no reason. Stubbornness is a characteristic of people who don't have a reason for what they're holding on to, okay? And we can get like that too. Sometimes I think we like to be stubborn. We actually enjoy being stubborn. I don't know. I think men probably. I'm going to speak for men. Chris, maybe you can throw something at me if I'm wrong, but everybody I think can be stubborn when it comes to a relationship. I'm going to hold my ground. If you're married, if you're not married, this is a very good demonstration of the husband and the wife can be very stubborn. They can have a fight. Okay, I've had fights, and we hold our ground for days, yea, even weeks, and it's over to the stupidest things, like something you said and you didn't say sorry for it, and I'm all hurt and I'm all bent out of shape, and so it goes on and like this, and of course you have to kiss and make up. That's the only decent thing to do. But these guys, the pattern. It just amazes you, all that they come through, the Red Sea, the whole thing, and they're still, man, we're thirsty, and they've had everything provided. Now, is that not stubbornness to not believe that there's a God out there? Come on! Anyway, what God wants in our lives is us to be submissive. Okay, He wants us to submit to Him. He wants us to say, you are in authority. You are in total control. And that word sovereign pops up again. You are sovereign. You are in control of everything all the time. There's nothing that escapes your notice. It's like they are saying to God, you didn't notice we're getting thirsty? Of course He knows they're getting thirsty. Of course but He wants that relationship with the whole nation to say, we depend totally on you for everything, even when the times are going rough. And we know you're going to come through for us. They all haven't dropped dead on the desert floor yet, so they're still able to go. So be thankful for that, It's a lesson for us. It's just a lesson for us that when things get hard, we keep our faith in God to say, yeah, all right. So when we go back to Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6, the opening verse, you go back, you have to approach God for who He is. Okay? So the children of Israel forgot about who He is. And it's a lesson for us to remember who is this God that we're serving. He could have wiped the Israelites right off the map right there and then, but He chose not to because He loved them. And so we think, Jesus died for our sins. He loves us so much. Why would He abandon us? Like, why would God go to all that effort to send His Son to die for us, to relieve us from the wrath of God, give us salvation, and then dump us? It doesn't make sense. Not even logical. Okay? All right. So let's move on to about God performing a miracle here. God comes through again with a miracle, and if God in His graciousness comes down and He does an amazing thing here. Look at verse 5, the words that He says here. Verse 5, the Lord answered Moses after he prayed to him, go out in front of the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff which you struck the Nile, and go. Yes, strike the rock. I will stand before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and the water will come out for the people to drink. Okay, so God has said, he says, go out from in front of the people. So He wants you to leave the people for now in the desert, and then go and I'll meet you at this place called Horeb in front of this big rock. So it must have been a very it must have been a big outcrop of rock, okay, a big piece of rock, and that's where He wanted to go. And he tells Moses to take some of his elders with him, and they kind of disappear out of sight before the people. You've got all these people milling around, they're all thirsty and complaining, and the people are probably going, now where's he going? He's leaving us. You could just imagine what's going on in this whole congregation, like, oh yeah, they're just going to dump us out here in the middle of the desert. Oh man, could you imagine the noise of all the complaining and stuff? That just must have it would have been deafening. Anyway, they disappear around the corner and go to this place called Horeb. And God says to him, meet me at the rock. And before Moses gets a chance to even think, God says to him, oh yeah, don't forget your staff. You know, the one that where you hit the Nile River and it turned to blood and all those things that you did with the staff. And I was wondering if there was just for a humorous break here, just to act some fun, okay? This is just a joke. So you won't find this in the scripture. But let's just say God stopped at saying, meet me at the rock at Horeb. And he stopped there and he didn't say anything about the rod. What do you think, what might have gone through Moses' mind is, oh good, we're out of here. He's taken us all leaders and we're leaving this place. That would be one option, right? Okay. And the second one, I think, God is going to give us, show us this beautiful lake. There's going to be a resort there, restaurants, a spa. It's going to be wonderful. The waves lapping on the shore. It's going to be great. And these people won't even be here. So that might be another option that might have gone through Moses' mind. I'm not, okay, this is just a joke, okay? And maybe the third option was, I'm out of here. And this is his chance to run. That's for the road runner, you know. There you go. He's out of here. But that didn't happen. Okay, so God does say, oh, don't forget the rod, because why? I mean, the rod was important. Okay, it was. We'll talk about that here. So sometimes we get these clear instructions, and sometimes we don't. But here we go out to this rock. Okay, so what happened? What happened at the rock? Anybody want to tell me what happened at the rock? Sorry, I didn't hear. He struck the rock with his staff. Okay. Notice that God stood before the rock, and then representing Jesus, and also that he was the one that was the power. It wasn't Moses' rod. God worked through the rod, but it wasn't the rod. Okay, but it was God's power that brought the water out. Okay, so in some of my readings, they were talking about the limestone, the type of rock that's in that area. It was very porous, and it actually held water. So God used a very porous rock to bring water. Okay, it wasn't when you go up into northern Ontario, you will find rock. It's called granite. This stuff is it's just so hard, and you'll see little trickles of water come out, and then it does make good lakes. But this is a limestone. If you go east of Toronto, you will find lots of limestone. It sits in sheets of rock like this, and the water just flows through it. And we get a lot of our well water from limestone and that. So this is the type of rock that I found in my research about that. It was just an interesting point. And it's interesting that it was the elders that were there. Not all the people came. All the elders were there, and they witnessed this miracle of water. So the Bible doesn't say, but we think that later on I think that they would have gathered the people up, and they would have brought them to this place, and then that's when everybody got their chance to drink. But God did this in isolation with his elders and with himself, so that he could demonstrate his power. And it's interesting. Moses turns around and he names this place. He calls it two names, Massa, and the other one he calls it Meribah. And if you get Massa means testing, okay, in Hebrew, and Meribah means contending. Yeah. So if you want to mark the spot here, you can still see what's going through Moses' mind. This was a bad situation. These guys were contending. They were contentious all the time, and they tested God. That was the one thing that really ticked Moses off, was that they kept testing God. Why are you testing God to see if he's actually here? He's here. And that's why he kept getting upset at these people. Don't you get it? He's here. So that's how he named the rocks, with those kinds of things in mind. That they tested God and that they were contentious. Okay, so besides providing water for the people, what transpired? What happened? How did God communicate something to the people by performing this miracle? You got any ideas? Like, what is the purpose behind him performing this miracle other than to give them a drink. What's he saying to the people? And he's got Moses involved, he's got the elders involved. Got any ideas?
Jehovah Jireh.
Jehovah Jireh, I'm a provider. Yes, okay, God is a provider. All right. Has he got, where I'm going with this, what about Moses? What is God doing for Moses to the people? What's he saying through this miracle?
He's validating Moses' leadership.
Validating Moses, yeah. Okay, yeah, he's saying, Moses, my man. Yeah. But another thing God was doing here is he was showing himself present. They had lost in their minds, they didn't think that God was around anymore, even though there was visible signs. But when you come up with a miracle like this, and you feed, you supply water for almost 1 million people, that's impressive. Nobody else can do that but God, right? So he's obviously reestablished that I'm here.